Hey, what's up? Just want to cut a quick message real quick before I go. I'm getting ready to take my daughter to cheerleading. I was just thinking about, how we identify ourselves, and I was on this call this morning, the Think and Grow Rich mindset call, and I'm on that call, and they're talking about leadership on that call, and it made me, I had my own angle on it. Everybody has their own angle on the way they learn stuff, and that's the power of a mastermind, having multiple people listening to the same thing, everybody interpreting things. It's a little bit different each, and actually expands all of our minds and makes all of us understand the message even more. That's the power of a mastermind. But I don't want to get off track from what I'm talking about. What I want to talk about is how we identify ourselves. And this guy was like, they were asked, to write down the name of a leader, or just what name pops up in your head first when you're asked, the name of leader. And this guy was like me. He identified himself as a leader. And I thought about that. If somebody asked me to name a leader, I would probably, like, when they started talking about it, I started thinking of like Dr. Martin Luther King and Tony Robbins and people that are pretty much like on a different playing field than myself. I'm not playing, the game of life on the same scale as them guys were, obviously, in R. I plan to. But, I started thinking of different great people, great leaders and stuff like that. And I didn't think of myself first. And I thought that was interesting, that maybe I should be identifying myself as a leader, faster, or something like that. But it was just an interesting, concept and thing, to think about. Like, if you're a leader in your organization, or if you're a leader at your company where you work, or if you're a leader in your family, or a leader out of your friends, like, do you think of yourself as a leader? Is that the first person that comes to your head when somebody asks you, do you know a leader, or can you name a leader for me, or something like that? Are you the first person you think of? I thought that was an interesting thought, and I'm actually going to start, you know, identifying myself as even more of a leader than I already am because of that, because of that food for thought. And I just thought that was interesting. And the way we identify ourselves is very powerful. I was listening to an audio book by Tony Robbins a few years ago, and he was talking about this guy. I'm going to tell you a short story. He was talking about this guy that was, went through school and didn't pay attention very well, and his teachers always told him that he was stupid. And they always talk really bad about him and stuff like that. And he was actually in like the stupid classes and stuff like that. So he got out of school, worked and just, got paid minimum wage for 10, 15, 20 years or whatever, about 15 years. He was in his mid 30s when his life changed. And he's, just going along, just strolling along, living life. And, because he identifies himself as an idiot and a dummy, he didn't really think that highly of himself, and never really, progressed in life. And one time he was broke and he was really looking for money, and they had an IQ test where you can get paid like $100 to go take this IQ test. And he went there, took the IQ test, and got paid the money. And then he gets a phone call a couple days later, and they say, "Can you come back and take that test again?" And he says, all right, I guess, sure. So he goes back and he takes the test again, and he's like, "You're going to pay me for it or whatever?" And they're like, "Yeah, we'll pay you for it again." He goes back and they pay for it. And he gets paid for taking that test too. And he leaves. And he gets a phone call a couple more days later, and the guy that's like running the operation there or whatever, he says, "Can you come back and take that test again?" And he goes, "Are you going to pay me for it again?" And he said, "Yeah, man, I'll pay you for it." And he said, "Why do you keep wanting me to come back? Are you insulting me? What, am I the dumbest person that ever walked in there? Did I score the lowest score of all scores?" He said, "Man, you actually got 100% on this IQ test, or something like that." He said, "You scored better than me on this IQ test, and I wrote the darn thing." That's what the guy that wrote the IQ test and was running the operation, for something that they were doing. I don't know what they're doing or whatever, but he said, "You did better than me on the IQ test, and I wrote the darn thing. You're a genius, man." So, so this guy's just strolling along and living his life, thinking that he's a dummy for like almost 20 years. He's in his mid-30s now, since he left high school because his school teachers told him that he was a dummy. So he had to live up to that identity for the next 15 to 20 years because he didn't know any better. You see that? See how sad that is? Living up to. So the way we identify ourselves, and that's what that lesson from earlier today actually made me think of that story and how we identify ourselves. And I actually I do identify myself as a leader. I'm obviously a leader, but I wasn't the first person that popped up in my head when they were talking about that. And I said maybe I should identify myself as even more of a leader than I already am, and maybe it might be more powerful. So I want to I'm going to do that. If somebody ever asks me that, I'll be the first person I think of because of that. Because I want because we live up to to how we identify ourselves. You know, it's very important how we identify ourselves. So I just want to put a video together here, to share with you guys so you guys know the power of how you identify yourself and how powerful self-talk really is. So if you're walking around saying I'm a loser, you'll actually try to live up to that. If you walk around saying you're a drug addict, you'll actually walk around trying to live up to that. That's actually why I don't believe in people saying that I'm an addict and stuff like that when it comes to drugs and stuff. I mean, Tony Robbins has gotten a lot of people off of drugs and got a lot of people off of, out of different, problems by identifying themselves differently in a better, more positive way. So, and that's another thing about the empower. That's another thing about the power of affirmations. That's why affirmations are so powerful, and people like to do them because they start identifying themselves in a different way and start living up to higher expectations of themselves. So just be careful how you identify yourself. If you want to be a leader, identify yourself as a leader. And if you if you want to aspire to greatness, you need to pay attention to the way you identify yourself and to your own self-talk. All right, that's it.